Right, now, today we're going to be talking about passive students. I'm sure we all experience a lot of passivity in the classroom, especially with teenagers. And we're just going to be looking at some ideas at how we can activate our students and get them into active learners taking responsibility for their own learning. Now, we're going to be looking at some active teaching methods, and here are some active teaching methods. We've got some things that we can look at then over the next hour that will hopefully be new to you, that we hopefully, something you can take away and use in the classroom. Thinking about this, it's useful to think about how people remember information and how people learn. This isn't a scientific research, this is just a general ideas about the way people remember information. So let's go through this together. 10%, we remember 10% of what we read. 20% here, 30% what we see, and then see and hear. So today, if you just see and hear what I'm talking about, maybe you'll remember 50%. However, if you speak and talk and write things down, you may remember 70%. And even more so, if we get a chance, if you do, you will remember a lot more. Okay, so another way of looking at this is with this. This is a learning pyramid. And at the top we have reading, hearing, viewing, watching, these very sort of traditional methods of learning. And again, as you can see down the side, we have what we've just looked at. The top part we can see is like passive learning, this idea. These are very passive methods where the students are sitting there receiving the information from the teacher or wherever. Down at the bottom we've got things more ideas such as participating, designing, collaborating, simulating, and experiencing and doing. And these are the things that we're going to be thinking about today, and these are what we can sort of loosely describe as active learning methods. And I think these are the key things, certainly when we're talking about learning a language, because learning a language is about producing the language, communicating, so it has to be about doing rather than just listening. Okay, so we need to think today how we can change this traditional idea of what a teacher is to the person standing at the front of the classroom, giving out the knowledge, asking the students questions, to a teacher who's there sort of facilitating the learning, involving the students, and just enabling the students to learn and experience in a better way. And similarly, we need to think about our students from being those passive recipients of knowledge to people who are much more involved in their education and involved in the process of learning. And that's a key thing that we're going to be looking at some ideas about that today, how we can get our students thinking about the way they learn and taking more responsibility for their learning. And ultimately, getting students from a position where they are answering the questions to a position where they're asking the questions and directing their learning. These are the aims behind the book English Plus. When we put the book together, this is what we were very sort of thinking about, how we can make a book that actually puts the student, gives the responsibility to the student to learn. The student is involved in the preparation, the planning, and the teacher can get on with the teaching. And hopefully can just open the book and teach without having to plan, prepare, make huge activities for the students to do. We're going to look at three things, the first of which, and most important, what do we need to do in the classroom? First of all, this picture is an indication. Indeed, we need to engage our students. Second, we're going to look at involve, so we're going to look at how we can involve students in the learning. And finally, we need to activate their learning and activate their knowledge, get them producing it. So those are the three things we're going to be looking at today. We'll begin at the beginning with engage and begin with the end in mind. What do we mean by this? I think one of the key things that we need to think about when trying to engage our students is making sure they're aware of why they are there, of the aims of the lesson and the aims of the learning. This is what we do in English Plus. Every unit starts off with these unit aims, but more so than that, we want to make sure in every lesson the students are aware of what it is they're going to do in that lesson, and we have these I can statements to do that. And I think it's important that we tell our students, okay, this is what you're going to do in this lesson, this is what you will be able to do at the end of it. Okay, KWL. KWL is a very active teaching method that's used a lot in schools in Britain. now, and the idea is it's using the students' knowledge to engage them. And the idea of the KWL is at the start of, say, a unit in the book, even at the start of the book, we ask students to draw a chart in their book. And the chart has 3 columns: what we know, what we want to know, and what we've learned. What I would do, so at the start of the unit, say the unit topic might be about the media, about newspapers, and I'd ask students on their own just to write down everything they know about newspapers. And so they fill up this column. Then maybe we get them to work in pairs to share their knowledge with each other of everything they know. And slowly, by building up a list of things they know, they also build up a list of the gaps in their knowledge. They begin to realise what they don't know. So then we move them on and we ask them, okay, now in this column, think of questions, what you want to know about the topic, what you don't know, and then the students start writing down a list of questions that they now have, and we're engaging them, we're getting their brains working, thinking about what they want to find out. And the key thing here, I think, is that it's the students that are directing their learning and the students that are asking the questions. And if they're the ones asking the questions, they're going to be more inclined to want to find the answers. You know, it's all about this process of getting their curiosity, getting them thinking. At the end of the unit, then I come back to this, and then hopefully we can go down and all the questions that they've asked, we can then answer those questions and they can see what they've learned and they can see the process that they've gone through. Something else I think that we can use to engage our students is use the contents page of the book. How would I use the contents page? Similarly, into the KWL chart, I'd go through all the topics with the students and I'd ask them, okay, what do you know about some of these topics? What do you think is going to happen in these topics? And again, find out, get them to build up their knowledge of all the topics in the book before we start teaching the book. Get them to ask questions, things they want to find out, make predictions about what's going to be in the book, and then write those things down. You can get them to write that down on, say, post-it notes, and then they stick the post-it notes for each unit on the first unit lesson, and they've got all these ideas about the topic, and then when we come to that unit in the book, the students have already got lots of questions, the things that they want to find out about the topic. Again, it's a way of piquing their interest, their curiosity in what's to come. Other ways to engage our students. Now, traditionally, course books would use photos of celebrities. But, unfortunately, we have sort of out-of-date celebrity couples. Or indeed, Michael Jackson, you know, the late, great Michael Jackson. Or sometimes we have pictures of technology that probably most teenagers today might not even recognise what that is. So this is not really a way to engage our students. Perhaps a better way, if we can't get them involved in teenage culture, why don't we kind of stimulate their brains and get them thinking about something? This is one way that we've used in English Plus to engage our students at the start of the unit with a puzzle or a quiz or a riddle or something that gets them thinking, perhaps in a non-linguistic way, but something that gets their interest. Here's a puzzle from the book. Okay, very quickly, which one of these is not an eye? It's the wing of a butterfly. We use this technique a lot in the book. We start every unit with a quiz, with a puzzle, a questionnaire sometimes, and often as well we personalise those things, and so it's the students finding out information about themselves. And while I appreciate not all teenagers like talking about themselves, you know, most of them do like finding out about themselves and relating the world to themselves. And these kind of things are a good way to do that, engaging them in the topic. They do a fun little questionnaire, they find something else, and then we can move on and their brains are stimulated, we hope. So we've looked at engagement, we've looked at ways to engage our students and some ideas to get them engaged. Now we've got to think about how we can involve them in their education, in the process of learning. What do you think this is all about? What do these numbers refer to? What's happening in the pictures? Where's the photo? Yes, excellent. Okay, let's look at this man. What do you think he's doing? Yeah, why has he got a man on his back? This lady, what do you think she's going to do? Get into the barrel and then what? Do you think she survived? Maybe. What about these numbers? 2.5 million. Maybe water, litres of water. 30 metres. Could be, yeah. 1859 or 1,859. The year. $10,000. Could be. Okay. We piqued our students' curiosity. They're thinking, they're asking questions. They want about things they need to find out. So, it then leads us into a reading text, which is, as you predicted, is about Niagara Falls and about the daredevils and what they did in Niagara. So, I'm going to suggest another way to do reading in class. It's called reading circles, and it's a nice way of giving the students, getting them involved in the text a bit more. I would divide the students into groups of 4, and then before we read, I would give each student a role. So, for example, first student, your role is the summariser. Your job is to read the text and then summarise it to everybody else. Next job, the word master. This student's job, read the text, look for difficult vocabulary, interesting vocabulary that helps understanding of the text. Next student, this is probably something for the stronger students, the role of connector. Their job is to try and relate the text to their own lives, their own experiences. You know, so they may think, well, have anyone here done anything dangerous? You know, how did it feel? That kind of thing. And finally, depending on the text, the culture vulture, whose job is to think about the text and relate it to your own culture. So, do we have a history of daredevils in Poland? Do people do stupid things for money? So then I would get the students to read it quietly, on their own, in their groups, and then afterwards give them some time to talk about this, and each person to bring something new to the text. The key thing here is giving each student an individual role, so they have a responsibility to do something. They can't just sit and let everybody else do it. Once we've gone through the reading, we would then move on and present the grammar. So we've exposed them to the grammar but haven't talked about it, and then they fill out the gaps, the structures, and then they see the rules themselves and find out the rules themselves and then go on to practice it. That's one way then we would sort of present grammar in the book. Once we've done a grammar lesson, I think it's a nice activity then to move on and do something like this traffic lights game. What is the traffic lights game? As I say, after you've taught grammar or something quite difficult, you want to find out, you know, how the students have understood it. So, again, it's another chart. I know, I think I know, I don't know. And again, on their own, I just ask the students, okay, write down everything about the topic, the grammar you're sure of. You can know, you can do, you understand. You can do this in Polish, I think, because I think this is an opportunity that students, they want to actually learn and think about stuff. So I think doing it in your first language is okay. The next column, things they're unsure of, but they've got an idea of, and finally, things they don't know. Then, I think I'd get the students to work in pairs or groups to find out, you know, to teach each other. And this is the key point about learning. They will learn more by doing, by teaching others. So students can explain to their friends, their colleagues, things that they're unsure about or they don't know about. And then the idea is slowly the students start shifting the don't knows to the think I knows and the think I knows to the knows. And then you probably want to do it all together just to check, obviously, understanding and make sure everybody knows where they are. So yeah, another activity that involves students in the learning, gets them thinking about it, and gives us a chance to see how effective the lesson has been. Fishbowl. What is the fishbowl activity? Again, it's another way to check how our students have understood a lesson if they have any questions. Now, I think I appreciate that students find it difficult to ask questions because nobody wants to sound like they are stupid and they don't understand. So at the end of the lesson, I would say, okay, any questions? Again, there are pieces of paper in the box. We give out the paper. Each student anonymously writes a question on the piece of paper. They can write it in Polish. Again, I think, you know, it doesn't have to be in English. And then all the questions go into the box. The next lesson, we take the box out. We hand the questions to students. They each pick a question out of the box. They read the question, and then working with their partner, or in a small group, the whole group, they try and explain the answer to the question. And again, the idea is the students themselves are asking the questions, and it's the students who are doing the explaining, doing the teaching to each other. Obviously, if no one can answer it, that's the time then we would stand and we would explain the answer to the questions. Okay, we've looked at engaging our students, we've looked at involving. We're going to look at how we can activate our students' learning, get them producing the language. With English Plus, at the end of every lesson, we have an activity called Activate, and the idea of the Activate activity is obviously getting the student to produce language from the lesson, everything that they have learned. Here's an activity here which gets students working on an idea if they organise a campaign using all this vocabulary that they come across in the lesson. We do that in every lesson, so grammar lessons, vocabulary lessons, etc. They all finish with a productive task that fulfills the aim of the lesson. Other ways, I think, project work is a great way of getting students sort of thinking creatively, using the language in a creative way, and getting them, you know, to do as much as they can. And I think projects are a great way to do this. In the book, we have a project section at the back of the book. It's at the back because it is optional, because we appreciate not everybody has time to do projects, but for those teachers who want to do projects, they can do that. What is this picture? It's the theatre, so it must be referring to using drama. The point of this quote, I think, is that I appreciate not every teacher wants to do drama in the classroom, and that's fair enough, it's a personal thing. But the point of this is to say that drama is something that we do every day, it's normal, it's a part of everyday life. It doesn't necessarily mean putting on a play for our students. And so therefore, I want to look at an activity, how we can take a reading text and turn it into something that we can use in a sort of drama activity. And we'll go back to the reading text we looked at before. So we've gone through, we've done the reading activity as we looked at before, we've done the grammar lesson about the past continuous, past simple, we come to the end of the lesson, and now we want to activate the students' knowledge. So what about this? Students work in groups of 4, and we say, okay, you're going to turn this into a news report. You can do this with a lot of different texts, as long as the texts are about events that have happened. And I'd say one of the students, your job is the newsreader. You have to introduce the story. So that student has to write a short introduction to the story. The next student's job, we need a reporter on the scene, and your job is to describe what is happening, describe what you have seen, and think of questions that you can ask people. The next student's job, you are an eyewitness. So you have to answer questions about what is happening, again thinking of the descriptions, using the past tenses to describe what you have seen. And then the final student's job, especially in this case, we can have someone to play the part of one of the protagonists, and they can talk about their experience, how it felt, what happened, all sorts of things there. If students have cameras on their phones, why not encourage them to film it? It's a nice thing to do. And then once you've done something like this, you know, there's so much more you can do with it. You could turn it into a project, something for homework, lots of things that you could take out from this. So the idea here, as I'm saying, drama doesn't have to be putting on a play, students learning lines. you can do a lot more with it besides. We also do have drama in the book. We have plays in the book for those of you that like putting on plays. And this comes in the teaching notes, the teacher resource pack, where you have all the things how to do it, warm-up activities, key vocabulary. You can listen to it and then put on the plays. And there's a number of plays that enable students to do that. So, we've looked at engaging our students, involving our students, and activating. Yes. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Some details there. If you want to get involved, please do. And if you use any of these ideas in the classroom, and if they work or don't work, please drop me a line. I'm interested to hear any feedback that you have. And there's also our Facebook, YouTube, and blog, and all those other stuff there. Okay, we're going to have a break now, so please enjoy your tea, coffee before the next session. Thank you.